and welcome back to my channel, where I'm going to quickly explain the optional class features provided by Tasha's Cauldron of Everything for the Warlock class. If you did not see the video where I explain what optional class features are, I highly recommend you go watch that before watching the rest of this video, as it will cover the basics of what types of optional features there are and go over some of the terms that I will use in various parts of this video. To help you out, I've linked that video in the description below. The Warlock class gains 3 new optional features, which puts it in line with the Sorcerer class. However, unlike the Sorcerer class, there are 2 features that provide new options for existing features, and one that provides what I classify as a retraining feature. There is one point that needs to be made, however. These are optional class features, meaning that your character does not automatically acquire them, so it's best to talk to your Dungeon Master before you make the assumption that you can take one of these features. That way you don't make a mistake and your DM gets upset with you. The reason is that they might not be allowing new optional features, or if they are, they might be looking to make them as a reward of some kind for either a quest or overall campaign, or a little bit of lore that you might discover along the way, thereby making it available to your character at that time. So just double check with them just to be sure. The first new feature is available at level 1, and it is called Additional Warlock Spells. There are a total of 20 new spells that your character could potentially make use of in place of existing spells, as your character levels up. The Warlock is also a class that introduces new cantrips, so it does appear that this is going to be a trend for the remaining arcane style of spellcasters. In addition to the new cantrips, of which there are 5 of those, there are also 5 new 3rd level spells, 1 new 4th level spell, 3 new 5th level spells, 2 new 6th level spells, 1 new 7th level spell, and finally 3 new level 9 spells. As per several other spellcasting classes, you can change out the existing spells at the time that your character levels up, but unlike other spellcasters, there is a limit of 1 spell per level that you can do that to. However, I have known some Dungeon Masters to be very flexible with that particular rule, and it is possible that a DM will introduce a new quest to be able to hand the acquisition of that new lore to you as a result. So it comes down to the type of DM that you're playing for and what they're going to do to handle the introduction of these new spells. A perfect example of that would be maybe your character's currently going through a dungeon crawl with your party, and you run across a piece of parchment that has information about your character's particular patron. And in that parchment is information about a different kind of spell that the patron had given to followers in the past. And it gives you an avenue to question your patron as to why you yourself haven't received that and see if there's a way that you can negotiate, if you will, access to that particular Warlock spell. So that's an example of how you could do that. Swapping out a spell is relatively easy. All you really have to do is choose the spell that you want to get rid of, if you will. In this case, I'm going to remove Blade Ward. And then you just simply drag and drop the other one into place. And then it's available for use. When you're adding a new spell, all you have to do is drag and drop it into place. But whether that spell comes from the new optional list of spells or whether it comes from the initial Pact Magic spell list or Warlock spell list, if you will, that's going to be entirely up to the Dungeon Master. And as you can see, there's a larger selection here. But that Dungeon Master is going to determine whether you even get to choose from these or whether you're going to discover these as part of a dungeon crawl or reward for a quest, things like that. At level 3, your character will gain access to a new Pact boon called Pact of the Talisman. When your character makes a pact of this type with a particular patron, they will be given an amulet that is used to enact the pact magic, but it also provides another benefit. When your character unintentionally fails an ability check, including skill checks, they can roll an additional 1d4 and add the result of that roll to their current ability check roll. However, this can only be used a number of times equal to your character's proficiency bonus before your character will need to complete a long rest to regain the uses of that. If your character happens to lose the amulet, they can replace it by completing a short or a long rest, and then after that, complete an hour-long ritual, at which time the new amulet will be provided, and the old one will be destroyed. And there really are a couple of ways that you can go ahead and make use of this. You could theoretically, for example, roll an Arcana check, and if you happen to fail that, which this potentially might, then you could pick up a 1d4, roll it in the chat, and then add the 1 to it, which might actually be just enough to succeed. The only issue with this is that the chat log's going to show that you're rolling an Arcana check, but for some reason you're rolling a d4 afterwards. There's not really going to be much in the way of context because something else might have happened in between. So what you could do is create a new Pact Boon entry, if you will. So drop this into place. And let's put this under Pact Boons. I'm going to call this Pact of the Talisman. And then I'm going to add a new effect to it. Within that effect, I'm going to go ahead and say Pact of the Talisman, semicolon. And I'm going to go with, I believe it is check, colon, 1d4. And then it will expire or expend itself on the next roll, and it will be on you. So now, all you have to do, because maybe you're not confident that you could potentially pass this particular roll, once your character's in the combat tracker, because that is key, you'll see that this error occurred when I tried to do it earlier as part of a demonstration. You click the effect to apply it to your character, and then you go ahead and re-roll the Arcana check, or roll the Arcana check. Now you can see it's already rolled the 1d4, and it's given us our actual total, if you will. There's also now context in play to show that we rolled the Pact of the Talisman additional die check, and the die is purple. So there's information there that provides context as to why you added a 1d4 to your ability check. Before we finish, however, we need to make sure we set up the number of uses here. This particular character has a proficiency bonus of 5. So we want to go through and make sure that we set up 5 uses of this particular talisman. And that would be daily uses because you need to complete a long rest. And now that we have that, we should be ready to go. The last feature your character gains access to is called Eldritch Versatility, and it is initially available to your character at level 4, but will be available again at levels 8, 12, 16, and 19. This feature gives your character the ability to change out an existing cantrip with another, maybe replace their Pact Boon with a different one, and if your character happens to be level 12 or higher, replace one of your Mystic Arcanum spells with another one. The change can happen when your character gains the ability score improvement feature, but it doesn't affect your ability to raise your own ability score or choose a feat. You still get the ability to do that in addition to these particular changes that you wish to make. However, your character can only make one change per ability score improvement feature. And that is pointed out in a couple of areas. The first is that you can do one of the following right here at the top. So that means that you get to choose one of these 3 particular bullet points. Within those bullet points, you can choose one cantrip, you can choose your Pact Boon, and here you could change one of your Mystic Arcanum spells. This means that if at level 8 you feel the need to change out a cantrip, you would not be able to change out one of your character's Pact Boons. Additionally, if you chose to make a change to one of your Mystic Arcanum feature spells, you would also change out the Eldritch invocation associated with that so that you can then make sure that those are aligned. So swapping out a cantrip, which I've already shown you how to do, is the first option there. So let's go ahead and potentially change out the Pact Boon here. So let's see, we've got Pact Boons here. I've gone ahead and created Pact of the Talisman. And you can choose Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Tome, and then simply add that feature into your Pact Boon's power group here, if you will, and then go ahead and add in its features. And you don't necessarily have to delete this because maybe at level 12 you want to go back to the Pact of the Talisman. It's entirely up to you. When it comes to the Mystic Arcanum feature swap, though, or spell swap, if you will, if you swapped out this particular spell and it makes it sort of ineligible for you to use a given Eldritch invocation, you also must change out the invocation. That's what I mean by when you make the adjustment to the Mystic Arcanum, you can also make the adjustment to the Eldritch Invocation. But in this particular case, it's only if the Mystic Arcanum feature change that you're doing makes you ineligible for the Eldritch Invocation that you have taken at the time. And that really comes down to the invocation's prerequisite option here. So if you've chosen out a Mystic Arcanum feature, and let's say it's because you had the ability to do Eldritch Blast and you got rid of that, and you had this particular Eldritch Invocation for Agonizing Blast, you then need to switch this out to something else. The last thing I want to go over is around the default retraining abilities that are available to the Warlock and how your character can make use of them. Essentially what it comes down to is that because this class has a retraining feature, it is clearly defining what you can make use of when swapping out those particular cantrips, or the Pact boons, or the Mystic Arcanum features, and potentially your Eldritch Invocations. But it doesn't cover things like your skill proficiencies or even subclasses. Anytime you're looking to make a change to your skill proficiencies or your subclass, you're going to fall under the default rules provided by Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and those are already covered in the video that I referenced earlier in this particular video as to how you can go and swap those out. So I highly recommend that you go and watch that particular video if you're curious as to how that works. In conclusion, though, the new additions to the Warlock look relatively straightforward, and it's nice to see that there's a wider range of options now for the class in relation to their spells and their Pact boons. I'm a little disappointed that there were no new Eldritch Invocations that were introduced, but that may be because there's already a very wide selection of those. However, this does bring us to the end of this video, and I want to thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I wish to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video. I hope you found it informative and useful to familiarizing yourself with Fantasy Grounds in general, and that you had fun in the process. If you found the video useful and you liked the content of the particular video, go ahead and click that like button to let me know. And if you have any questions specific to the topic covered by this particular video, or just have some comments in general, please feel free to post something in the comments section, and I will do my best to respond to any questions that are asked. Additionally, I do release content quite regularly, and it's generally specific to Fantasy Grounds or 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons at this time. So if you'd like to be notified when new videos come out, go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell to ensure that notification is sent to you when I release a new video.